Okay, class, picking up where we left off at, it says which is the steepest graph, h of x, because it has the absolute value of 5, which is the biggest amount. So that's what makes this the steepest graph. It says what is the shallowest graph? It would be k of x, because the absolute value of negative 0.2, which we know is the closest to 0, so it's the smallest. Now we move on to example 2. It says that g of x is equal to a negative 2 times the square root of x plus 3 under the radical plus 4. Place the endpoint at the start of the table, then place a few reasonable points, i.e. whole numbers, in the table, then graph by hand. Now what you could do is you can put this in your calculator and it will give you the visual representation you see here. And then we could just substitute in these values. You could go, as a matter of fact, let me show you this on the calculator. So we'll clear out our y1, y2, and y3. And we'll go here to y1 and we will type in the equation, negative 2 times the square root of, and then parentheses, we'll type x plus 3. Close the parenthesis, then you have to press your arrow to come from up under the radical and put plus 4. Now we want to put zoom and we want to do standard, which is 6. And as we see this point here, and we notice this point is at negative 3, and then if we go up, it goes to positive 4. So our point is negative 3, 4. So what we could do is this here to get other values. We could press second and then graph, and it will give us our table. If we go up, you notice we get an error. We get an error from here on out. So our endpoint here would be negative 3, 4. And then we could pick some other values here. Now personally, if I was picking these values, I would pick values that would give me whole number answers. Like you had negative 3, 4, negative 2, 2. You have 1, 0. Then I just keep scrolling till I get some integer answer, 6, negative 2. You got to keep scrolling. And you have 13, negative 4. And keep scrolling. Then you will have 22, negative 6. So those would be the values I would use. So it would be negative 3, 4, negative 2, 2, 1, 0, 6, negative 2, 13, negative 4, and finally we had 22, negative 6. And this is a visual representation of the graph. Now, what we want to do, we want to state the domain. Now, the domain is the x values. We know that negative 3 will be the lowest domain and it's included, so it will be in a bracket. But if you notice, even though the graph is going down, it's still going along the x-axis and including all of the x's going in a positive direction, so it'll be to infinity. Now we want to do the range. Now if you look here at the range, if you notice, we're going to include all of the negative y values because it goes down. So we know our lowest values would be negative infinity. Now remember, our endpoint here is actually our highest point, which is a positive 4 for our y value. So it'll go from negative infinity to positive 4. So now, we have stated the domain and range, and now we move on to our next page with example 3. It says for functions of the form y equals a times the square root of x minus h plus k are graphed on the same scale below. Determine the sign a, h, and k. Now if we look here, our a, we know would be positive, our h would be negative, and our k would be negative. And that is because We know A is positive because, as you see, the graph is increasing. H is negative because if you notice the graph went to the left. And then K, if you notice, K is negative because the graph is going down. Okay, now, the next thing. If you look here at B, the graph is increasing, so we know it's positive. H, if you notice here, it doesn't move to the left or right, so H is 0. And for K, we notice that that it's up, so it'll be positive. Okay, now, with our C, let's take a look here at this graph here. Now C, we have A. If you notice the graph is going down, it's decreasing, so it's negative. H, you notice that the graph shifted to the right, it's positive. And then finally K, if you notice the graph is going down, so it's negative. Okay, now, the next thing. If you notice here, the graph is decreasing, is negative. H, we notice here that the graph went to the left, so it's also negative. And our K, we know that it is 0 because it's not going down or anything, and that's from the x-axis. Now, it says here we have a couple other things here. It says which graph has the largest absolute value of A. So our first answer here would be A because it's the steepest. Then it says here which graph has the smallest absolute value of A. It would be B because it's the shallowest. Now we can take a quick look at it. Let's take a look at A. Notice here it's the steepest. And B, it is the shallowest compared to all the rest, the other two graphs. So this is the final answer, and we are done.